My name is Dino Dini. I am an independent video game developer. I've been doing that for 35 years or something. What I was born to do, I should think. And I'm back again doing it. Older, but hopefully a bit wiser. From an early age, I was into technology. So my father was an engineer. And then for some reason, my parents were both Italian, moved to England. That's where I was born. I was playing around with electronics at the age of 5. So the thing is that what I like to do is I like to make things that were alive, if you know what I mean. I remember being in an amusement arcade, and we can date it because one of the games was Blockade, which is actually Snake, right? There was also Space Invaders. It's fascinating, isn't it? I did play them, but when I played them, I said, I want to make them. That was very, very strong feeling. It wasn't enough to play them, I wanted to make them. And the motivation was to make something that's alive. When I got to about 13 years of age, it became possible to own a computer. So this was really weird because it's like computers up to that point were ridiculous things that only scientists and very rich people could have anything to do with. But they came into the home in this weird way. It was affordable. I remember 13, I was working on the Acorn System 1, 14 on the Acorn Atom. The first published games were dated 1980, so that would have been when I was 15. I was making some money, but it wasn't to support myself. But I had to go to school, right? So basically the story is I finished school and then my parents wanted me to go to university. It's probably good that I did. When I left that, I'm 21 years of age and I find a job repairing computers at a place called Silica Shop in Sidcup. You know, eventually I wanted to get back to making video games. And so one of the clients of this place that we were repairing computers for was called Anco. And they were in Dartford, which is sort of the east, sort of southeast of London. And I said, well, I'll go and visit them. And so I met Anil Gupta of Anco. I said, look, I want to get back into doing games. I'm really good. So he gave me a conversion to do. So basically I quit my job and became full-time. So the answer to the question then, when did I become full-time? No, it was 1988 on the 1st of January. And that's the day I started work on Kickoff. It's not the first game I did, but it's the first game you could say as a professional supporting myself with my work. It was crazy what happened with it. Couldn't have expected it to have the success that it had. Anil Gupta wanted a football game. I remember he was saying, you know what you're doing. I said, so what do you want me to do? And he said, well, I've been looking at football games and they aren't very good. Oh, okay. It's a challenge. And so I went with that challenge and I put this to the side and I'd always watched international football. I understood what football was. I mean, you know, Italian, that's in the blood maybe as well. And so that's why it's an arcade football game. It's like asteroids with a ball. It's alive, has a life of its own, and you work within it, and everything is fluid, smooth motion, responsiveness. You make your decision, you succeed or you fail, down to your ability to hold it together when you're under pressure. I think a lot of the early games were like that. I had to program that in assembler to make it run fast enough on these machines. And the development environments were very poor and very rough. But then on the other hand, many aspects were simpler. The sprite sheet isn't not really that difficult to make it work and so on. So it's a thing about design. Design is all about getting from a situation with massive possibilities down to only one. That's your job as a designer, is actually to cut stuff out. And the more you have to cut out, the bigger your work. Back then, the constraints of the platform and of my knowledge and abilities actually meant that a lot of decisions were easier to make, if you know what I mean. And so that kind of compensated for the fact that I was working in assembler on early platforms, and it was slow and didn't have any hard disks. It was all on floppy disks. I mean, it's crazy. Anko were a very small company, and they were not in good financial situation. And I was developing it for free, if you know what I mean. So I didn't have any advance. And Anil was keen to get the game published. And I started to get pressure at the end of that 15 months, even though he hadn't invested anything in it. He was telling me, yeah, it was really positive feedback. And that was the first sign that I had that actually this was something good, But he had the connections with the distributors, and so he used that. And I think when they saw that the game actually had some value, it was weird because I didn't see it. I said, okay, it's just another game, it's just another Asteroids. What was there to be excited about? Asteroids, but it's football. But it put Anko on the map in a way that he probably would never have imagined. I mean, he hit the jackpot. It was like a dream come true, no doubt, for him. Must have made him a very rich man. I don't have any real figures, but we can summarize it all by saying that for a period of 2 years, Kickoff and Kickoff 2 were in the top 10 on ST and Amiga every week in many territories and so on. And so somebody could make an estimate of what it took to be in the top 10 for 2 years. Other games didn't do that. They would be around for a while and then they would disappear. So I'm quite sure it was a lot. The young devs of today need to understand that success is a double-edged sword, and if you don't look after the sword and handle it properly, it will cut you. And there's a lesson here. It's like, and I would say this to any independent game developer, don't ever do what I did and just go entirely by trust and not really look after the business side of it. It's so tempting to just say, okay, on the release, let's agree, you pay me some money, we do this, blah, blah, whatever. And then not check up on the sales figures and not make sure that the IP is respected, that the publisher isn't going to go and release the game, get the game made on other platforms without your involvement and all of this. Of course, I didn't care because I didn't know it was going to be big. That's my point. It's like you might make a monster. And that's what I did. I made a monster. If I'd intended to make a monster and succeeded, I might have taken some precautions, or if I thought it was going to happen.